record. So you need to let me know if you cannot see the slide. And I try to arrange content which is most practical and most useful for your projects, for you to work on the project. And yeah, you can find the content further from the course textbook or from the slide, which is also uploaded, and also the recorded video. So today we start with the scope management. Okay, good. Thank you, Christopher. I know you have questions, and now we went through that. We talked about what is a scope. Yeah, you should find the right notch term for this. And then we talk about the requirements. Why we talk about requirements? And we talk about requirements in agile developments, which will be your way of working. Scrum, every team will implement Scrum. And you know, aware of different requirement collection methods. And work breakdown structure, this part of the tool, you deliver a project plan with a work breakdown structure. And you need to be aware and control, validate your scope, and a bit best practice. Again, that's important for you, especially maybe some group might remain the hybrid or even digital way of working. To really set down a plan and commit and follow the plan. So yeah, you fail to plan, which means you plan to fail. And you can have many things which related to this course that you should plan. Scope is the most important and the first and foremost things to do. And cost and budget. In this course, it means the effort. Because some of you work, some of you, many of you have other courses. So you need to plan your efforts and how you put the effort and how you invest your efforts in the course sufficiently. And time, you need to see also how much time you think you need for each task in the project, and how much time you need in order to complete what you promise in the scope. We also want to see how you control the quality aspect, even though it's not that critical in this project course. Infrastructures. Communications, next week we will have class on the communication planning, but I guess you have to do it right after, right when you know who is your customers. So I suggest that a few groups, you sit down together and vote for one person that will be the contact person who send email and arrange meeting, etc. to the customer. Avoid that everyone send emails, so it flooding the customer email channels. And risk, that's also what you should aware of. And customer relationships, yeah, that's more not only about communication but also remain, I mean, the relationship, a good relationship with them. Okay, so so first, the scope. So the scope refers to all the work, task, activity, deliveries involved in creating the products and the process used to create it. Yeah, so you see this picture. So when we start the project, we initiate the process. Yeah, you have several things that you need to set it up. And during the planning and executing, you will collecting requirement based on the requirements, you define the scope, visualize the scope by drawing the work breakdown structure. And during the control process, you verify and control the scope. So this is a common process for scope management. Yeah, so to break it down, you first plan for the scope, then collect requirement, define the scope, create a work breakdown structure, validate scope, and control it. And first and foremost, let's talk about requirements and ways to collect requirements. So the requirement is the descriptions of the system and its constraints. If you work with most of you will do is a web with link. So you develop a website. It might be static or dynamic, but yeah, it might look function as a website. And we need to have a list of you need to describe like how the website will functions, what is the features, and what is the constraints. The requirement can be a very at a very high level abstract. For example, people who wrote in the project 3 description, I asked for a list of requirements, and most of them are at the very high abstract level. But it can also be very detailed. So it detailed in a way that when you give the requirement to other friends or developers, they understand and they can develop exactly what you want. Requirement can be served first of all for for the developments of the website, but yeah, in the real project you use it for many purposes, for making contract, for bidding, for showing investment, giving to marketing department, etc. Yeah, so usually what you will do in a typical project is to create a requirement specification documents, and these tend to be long documents with a lot of details. But when you work in the agile methods, you tend to focus on the software, the website itself, rather than documentations. And hence, we're not asking you to create such a documents, but you still need to have a way to document your requirements. And okay, so this is one example from the textbook. The main care systems or medical practice management systems. So they manage the information, the operations of several hospitals and clinic centers, and they support the functions like setting appointments with patients, billing and sending invoice to patients, and other administrative tasks like managing the inventory, the category of medicine and drugs, etc. As you see in this screen, that's the master view of the inventory system, where they list out all of the drugs, medicines, the quantity, and the purchase price and other information. Requirements can be written in the high abstract level, and it can be also called a user level requirement, and it can be more detailed, and it is called a system level requirement. So this is an example. You will learn later, but yeah, when you write the requirement, you need to follow a certain pattern. Yeah, you can write panache. I think that for sure that will be a pattern sentence in the local language. But yeah, the most popular way to see this in English. So the first one, the main care system shell. Yeah, you should have this shell, and then the verb generate monthly management report showing the cost of drug prescribed by each clinic during that month. So you see the requirement is quite concrete and is specific enough, and we should be able to understand it in the same way. But at the system level, yeah, you see the information is given more precise, more concrete. The condition is also specified. For example, the 1.2, the system shall generate a report for printing after 5:30. So here's the specific time on the last working day of the month. Right? It doesn't tell the format of the report, but yeah, at least we know that we have to do something here, and we have the time and we have the constraint we need to follow. Or 1.4, if drugs are available in different dose units. So here is described alternative use case, and yeah, we have to react to this properly. Yeah, so if you take the system Utvikling, maybe you have gone through this example. But anyway, because we don't expect you to have any like for prior knowledge, so I just need to go through this. Yeah, so user requirement is a thing that you can formulate and talk to the customers. So, and system requirement is what you need to break down and describe in a more detailed manner, enough for you and other people in the team able to code and to develop. So I will see if you are able to manage to produce these two kind of requirements in this project. But yeah, at least you should be able to talk, to communicate with the customers. In the first meeting with Project N, I see some people asking about customer about HTML or something. The customer might not understand. I mean, what is HTML, or even like the more like technical details of the web development. So that even in a solution space is not in the problem space. So what you should try to do is to understand what actually they need, and from the user requirements, and from that specify in further detail, and based on your knowledge, based on your competence on web development, you map it to specific solutions. And the solution, it depends. It doesn't matter if it's HTML or it's WordPress. The most important thing is that the solution, it should map one-to-one to the requirement, solve each of the requirements from the customer. Okay. And so the customer is one kind of stakeholder, and you might see many different stakeholders in the project. But in this project, we focus on two. The first one is the customer themselves, and the second one is the manager or the supervisor, which is me. So, but in a real project, you can see the list rather to be long in this way. Okay, so when I say about describing requirements, and when we put it in the agile context, I think you study a bit in system Utvikling. Otherwise, in the third week, the lecture 4, not next week, but the week after, we will go through the agile development where we talk about this. But I'm afraid that's a bit too late, so bring it back, bring it in front here. So when you work in a Scrum, you will start first with what is called a product backlog. This exactly is a list of requirements, but it is called in this way, and it's trademarked for Scrum agile methods, and it lists our own desired work on the project, so it should be complete. everything in the product backlog, when you finish them, you're supposed to cover 100% the scope of the project. And it should be prioritized, and it should be divided into a smaller sets, which is a sprint backlog. For example, if you have 10 items in the product backlog, you can divide in like 3, 3, 4. So 3 smaller backlogs for 3 sprints. And what the item is, the item in the product backlog is let's call user story. So it is a short, simple description of a feature. So this absolutely is a user level requirement. And this is an example. As a user, I can indicate folders not to back up so that my backup drive isn't filled up with the things I don't need to save. Yeah, the stakeholder, the goal, and the purpose. That's the 3 things highlighted in this pattern. And imagine that you have the list of user story like this in the product backlog. Different user story might have different they might have different level abstractions. It's the same like requirement. Some requirements are very high abstract level, some are more detailed, and usually you need to split break down user story into multiple smaller story, and in a lower level story it tend to be more detailed and technical driven, so you can closer to what you need to implement. There are also things that you should do is the estimations. When you list out the functions, and you also need to estimate and decide which user stories, which backlog items are the most important, and we focus on implementing the most the prioritized items. Right, and yeah, this is another example. We have a bit more example here. And the next things is the type of requirements. So there are 2 kind of requirements, functional and non-functional. So most of the requirement you see is a functional requirement. So I will talk about it first. It describes the features, how the system should behave, and what the system should react to an input. Non-functional requirement is about the constraints, the conditions, and the state that the system should reach or should be in when they perform their behavior. And yeah, so for example, this is a functional requirement for our men's care systems. What does the number mean? Okay, let me see. Questions. Okay. What was the question, Robert? If you refer to this slide, no. Maybe you refer to us.
The previous one. This one, estimate.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, I go quick here because we have a separate slide for this, but the number meaning here's the effort estimation. 3 points for the first one and 8 points for the last one. So the 8 point mean, okay, it's likely to take like more than double effort compared to the first one. Yes, exactly. This is an abstract number. So there's different way for estimation. Either you use abstract number, either you put in the real number, like number of hours, number of days, Yeah, but there are different ways for doing estimations. But we will go through it as well, I guess today, yes. But yes, and this example of like how functional requirement in man care systems. Again, the slides are available online. You can read it again. Yeah, so Christopher, yeah, so Robert, so yeah, it was time estimation. Well, yeah, there are no strict rule on that. You can put the time estimation. Time and effort is very like closely correlated. Christopher, yeah, you use the system before for planning features. Yeah, it and we show you to do like plan poker today, so you can sit down and work together in a group. And so yeah. Okay, so another thing you need to also describe, or at least in this project, you need to tell and you need to demonstrate that you implement, which is a non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirement is also, it is called a quality requirement. For a website, the most common non-functional requirement is user-friendly. Yeah. When you have the universal design for a web, that's what we learned from the web public being. So you will somehow achieve the user friendliness. That's one kind of non-functional requirement. But you might have a lot of non-functional requirement like performance, like storage requirement, like constraint on device. Yeah. Non-functional requirement important because it's impact the overall architecture. It's like cross-cutting concern because it's not like you change one file. You need to change, like for example, with the design. Yeah, okay, but for web development, it might be that you change one file. Like if you import the same CSS file to multiple HTML files and you change the responsive part, like the query, media query part, then it applies to all of the files. So this is an example of a cross-cutting concern. And a single non-functional requirement, yeah, it might be broken down into a more detailed functional requirement. And again, it can also be broken down to non-functional requirements. So the way when you analyze and break down the requirement, it might lead to a complicated process. Yeah, and you can classify it in multiple things, but for this kind of project, project 3, I think we mainly concerned with the product level requirement. But project 1 and project 2, maybe you need to talk and you need to ask more about the organizational context. What are the rules? What are the regulations within the ski center or within the company? So the website should follow and yeah, get along with their constraints. Okay, so this is an example of, for example, organizational level, right? Users of the man care system shall authenticate themselves using their health authorities identity card. Yeah, this is something special to the organizations. And the system shall implement patients' privacy solutions as set out in these documents. So this is external requirement. And there's methods for collecting requirements, and what you have done, I think it takes a shape of an interview, but because the customer actively present themselves, so you are not that active in the meeting, but maybe you should change and be more proactive in the coming sessions with project 2 customers and project 3. Especially project 3, I will stay and mainly listen to your questions because I provide you enough, I think. And other way to collect the requirements, Jack, he offered that people working with project 1 can come over and visit him. He have a free offer for rooms for elevator court. So if some of you are interested in skiing, I mean, that's a good opportunity. So combining both like project and enjoy a weekend there. But that is kind of observations. Yeah, that's what I want to say. If you go there and you observe how things happen there, is observations. And yeah, as you see, different collection methods apply to different kind of software. A website can be seen as a mass market software. You make it for internet users, and you see that interview work well with all of this kind of software. Yeah, so this is the way you might need to do again if you still don't understand fully the requirements. Right, then we come to the defining the project scope, and you need to define the goal, subphase, task, resource, budget, and schedule. And we'll talk about the work breakdown structure before the break. Work breakdown structures is a hierarchical decomposition of the whole of the scope of the project. And work breakdown structure should include 100% of work, and it captures all deliverables like internal, external. And when you finish, and when all the work in work breakdown structure is covered, we say we can finish the project. And you should not repeat items inside the work breakdown structure. When one task appears in the work breakdown structure, it should not appear in any other location in that work breakdown structure. And okay, so there are three in the terms we can use in work breakdown structure is activity, task, and milestone. Task is something like smaller than activity, and milestone is the point in time. It marks some important time when you need to start things or you need to finish things. Okay, so I think you better understand what is a work breakdown structure by going through several examples. So this is a work breakdown structure organized by the deliverables and the nodes. So it is a hierarchical tree, and we have multiple level nodes, and for each node you see is a product or is an artifact or it is a deliverables. So the internet is broken down into 4 kind of pages: website design, home page design, marketing page, and sales page. And for example, home page design, we need to have text, image, and hyperlinks. So these are the artifacts we need to make. And for the same project, you can also make the breakdown structure based on the phase, based on the activities. Level 1 is the root entire project, and level 2 is broken down into conceptualizations, web design, web development, rollout, and support. So I would like you to create a work breakdown structure using the following this kind of way. So breaking down basing on a phase or activities. and we combine it with the Scrum. When you break it down, you will have several sprints here. Instead of like developments will be sprint 1, 2, 3, etc. And yeah, and further levels, level 3, level 4 is even more detailed activities or tasks. And when you complete, for example, level 4, these 4 tasks related to the requirements, when you complete these 4, meaning that you complete the defined requirements at level 3. It's important to give a number to indicate the level of the activity or task or node in the work breakdown structure. So in this tabular form, for example, you see concept at level 2 is represented by 1.1, and evaluate current systems in a level 3, it is created with 1.1.1. I don't recommend you to go further to level 4. It will make the work breakdown structure way complicated and too big for one to have an overview. So level 3 is usually good enough. So this is one example of also work breakdown structure based on activities for a typical software project. And this one is they follow the waterfall process. And yeah, I suppose you know that, like when they start with management and then requirement design, development, testing, and training. And if you do for Scrum, you need to have a different structure than this. Yeah, so why create a work breakdown structure? You make it not because I asked you to do so, but in a project, you will find it very useful to have an overview of the whole project, of what you need to do. And you have this give you a way to break down the whole project to manageable packages. And by doing so, you also it's a way toward good estimations. When you break it down, and then it guides you to a more detailed estimation of the project time, cost. And it also helps you to allocate a resource. Based on work breakdown structure, you can say who will do what, who will take care of which parts of this work breakdown structure. Yeah, it's a great thing for team brainstorming. Yeah. So there usually no question, no doubt on why people should do it in a project. Okay, and we talked about this already. So approach to create a work breakdown structure. So using a guidelines, analogy approach. So the example I can provide you in this slide, you can base on that to see how a typical work breakdown structure for a web development project. But the thing is that you need to combine with Scrum, so yeah, it's not exactly the thing that you can reuse directly from this example. But I think what you do will be the analogy approach, finding a similar web development project and tailor it to match with your real process. Top down, go from the top on the goal, the objective, and break it down further. Or bottom up, start with specific tasks and roll it up. My mapping approach. Okay, and two other things need to be mentioned is validating and controlling the scope. Well, it is, to be honest, it is very difficult to create a good scope statements. And at the first attempt, you would not be able to know exactly the scope of your website. Even is a project tree that you decide yourself. I mean, things will change, and you will need to update your scope or your scope plans gradually. And scope validation is actually the main idea is to deal with change. Yeah, controlling the changes and make sure that you not like overdo things. Make sure that you will avoid the scope creep. The scope creep is meaning that you continuously accept changes to the project scope at any point, and the project getting bigger and bigger. The costs need more. You need more time as well, and all other things going out of control. And yeah, you may lead to a poor delivery or even crash of your project. Many reasons leading to that, but yeah, but you know that is what you should avoid. There's some practice suggest for you, like prioritize requirement. Prioritization is very important, and you need to do that. Then you focus on the must-have requirements and put the nice-to-have requirements a bit later. Put it in later sprints if possible. Set a project expectation right from the beginning. Agree on what should be the deliverables documents. Well, document is not the strong part of Agile, but yeah, we will supervise you to have a control over documentations. Another issue is the unrealistic scope. It's very important not over-promise to the customer. If you say that you want to achieve 10 points and in the end you only deliver 7 points, that's disappointing. But if you say you can achieve 6 points and in the end you deliver 7 points, then the same workload, the same deliverables, but you wouldn't get a good impression from the customer. So the same results, but the first one maybe you get low grades, but the later one you get a better grade. Yes, as request, I think we have 15 minutes break now, and we continue after the break. Okay, so I pause the record as well. You come back after 15 minutes, and I open the breakout rooms in case that you need that. All right. So let me see. Okay, I think that I have not stopped the recording as I should. Okay, so I thought that I have done it. Okay, but then it will have like 15 minutes pause during this. Where Wolfman the you will find it later in Canvas. I have to see if I have to cut the this 15 minutes pause. Right. Okay. Okay, then welcome back. And okay, so you see my screen, hopefully. Yes, so we are talking about scope management, and let's continue from there. Yes, and there's two common problems. The first one is scope creep, that when you continue having many changes after the project starts. And the second thing is an unrealistic scope. When the project scope is too broad, and yeah, it can cause a lot of problems. So the first thing is is an example. It's a famous case study, McDonald in 2001. So they initiate a project to create an intranet system that connect the headquarters with all of its restaurants in USA to get better control of the operation operations of them in a real-time manner. So that's a good idea, and that's pretty much doable nowadays with internet. But at that time with internet, it's yeah, you need the physical layers and need to run the wire to all of the places. So after spending like $170 million on consultants and they actually initiate the project, they have the implementations already planned. McDonald realized the project is too large, too much to handle, and terminated it. It is important to handle, and I know it will take time to plan and control your scope. And I'm very exciting to see how you will do that in your project. So don't make the project scope too large, but also don't make it too small. You need to make it fit with the number of people you have in your team. And I will say if it's okay or not when I look at your work breakdown structure. And involve users in scope management. So if possible, involve and share your plan with the customers so they can have on feedback on that. And yeah, using third-party, like for example, WordPress is one kind of like off-the-shelf software. So you, again, it's not a programming class, so you don't have to do everything from scratch. And follow a good project management process. And this what I hope that you will learn from lectures in this course. Right. Okay, so now I will go to the part 2, the time management. So we talk about why we should manage and control the time activities within time management, which is activity definitions, sequencing, And the important tool, which is network diagrams, and among network diagrams, Gantt chart is the most popular one. And you will learn and need to create a Gantt chart for your project plan. In the end, we talk about the estimations, yeah, and the safety control. So our project manager often cited that delivering project on time is their biggest challenge. And there's many statistics, many numbers showing that yeah, it's very